Hi, my name is Jason Bowler. I'm a Magister Linguae Latinae, a teacher of the Latin language, and I'm here to talk to you guys about why you should take Latin. Well, it seems like kind of an odd choice, but perhaps you're interested in the learning of ancient cultures. If you look hard enough, you'll actually find that ancient culture still lingers in our culture. Perhaps you're interested in learning a little bit more about the English language. If you look in legal terms and medical terms, and in the language that we speak every day, you'll find that there's a little bit of Latin and perhaps a little bit of Greek. 70% of our language, after all, is Latinate, meaning that it comes from Latin or languages that are in turn derived from Latin. And maybe, just maybe, you're interested in going to Rome or Italy one day. In this picture, you actually see what looks like kind of a disc with a big glowing ball at the middle. What you're looking at is the inside of a dome on one of the famous structures of Rome called the Pantheon. Around it, you actually see this beautiful coffered ceiling, and then right in the middle, there's a hole through which the light shines. That hole is called the oculus, which is the Latin word for eye. In this picture, you'll actually see a collection of buildings called the Forum. It's of course in ruins nowadays, but if you were to walk the streets of Rome, you would actually find it right in the middle. Now, in that forum, you would find the Curia, which was the old Roman Senate house. You can see that in this picture. It's that square building, or rather rectangular building with the triangular top. You would find a number of temples, and you would find a number of basilicae. Those were buildings that were used for public purposes, mostly law courts. In these buildings, the Romans would worship, gather, and debate matters of state. Now here, you actually see yet another famous building in Rome, and that's the Arch of Constantine. It sits right next to another famous building, which is the Colosseum. Speaking of the Colosseum, if you were to go into the Colosseum today, you would actually see this. Now, this doesn't look like much of anything, but what it is the substructure of the Colosseum. You probably have seen the Colosseum in movies like Gladiator, and you know that gladiatorial combat, executions, and animal hunts would have taken place there. However, there was an entire basement level that spectators never saw. That basement level was used as a staging area for props, for animals, and sometimes for people. They were put into the arena sometimes via dumbwaiters, that is, manually operated elevators. And they would pop out every now and then to the delight of the crowd and sometimes to the horror of the gladiators who were fighting in the arena. And then finally in this picture, I'm going to cheat just a little bit and go outside of Rome. If you were to go down to Pompeii near the Bay of Naples, you would actually find one of the best preserved theaters in the ancient world. Now, perhaps you're interested in mythology or art, or perhaps both. In this picture, you actually see a famous mythological scene wherein Achilles is dragging the corpse of Hector. Now over here, you actually see Narcissus. It's a wall painting of Narcissus. Yes, that same Narcissus who was so beautiful that he fell in love with his own reflection. And then finally, you see this wonderful statue, one of my favorites from the ancient world. This is a depiction of Laocoon. And Laocoon was that Trojan priest who dared defile the Trojan horse by throwing his spear into it. Perhaps you're interested in ancient literature as well. Here you see 2 pages from the Vatican Virgil. This is a codex, or an early book that would have been illuminated, that is to say, it would have been illustrated. Here, it's depicting one of the voyages of Aeneas. And Aeneas was a guy who escaped the Trojan War and managed to go on a series of adventures throughout the Mediterranean. He eventually ends up in Italy, and there he fights a war with a fellow by the name of Turnus, wins, and his son Ascanius founds a kingdom by the name of Alba Longa, a kingdom from which Rome actually comes. What I want you guys to take away is the fact that Rome is everywhere. It's right here in the DMV. If you were to go a little bit further south, you would actually see it on the crest of Norfolk, Virginia. It says, "Et terra et mare divitiae tuae crescas." May your riches be on land and on sea. May you grow. Down here, you actually see the picture of the famous mansion Monticello. That's Thomas Jefferson's old abode. You may be saying, well, what's so classical about that besides the columns? Well, if we take a look at this other depiction of this famous structure, the Pantheon, yes, that self-same Pantheon that we were looking at the inside of before, well, you begin to see the resemblance. There's a portico with columns out front, but there's also a domed structure in the back. That's right, Thomas Jefferson was an avid student of classical culture and classical architecture, and he incorporated some of that old architecture into his own home. And then, of course, on the seal of the Commonwealth of Virginia, you see that famous utterance, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants. All of the depictions of structures that you see here have something in common, which is that they're all Roman in their origin, but not a single one is in Rome. If you take nothing else from this, it's just that Rome pops up in places that you wouldn't expect, including in Jordan, in France, and in Greece. So when people ask you, why are you taking Latin? Isn't it dead? Well, tell them that it's not dead, that it's sleeping, kind of like old Argus here. And it actually sleeps in our institutions, in the way that we do things, and in our language. This has been Magister Jason Bowler. Thanks for listening. See ya.